Hello, everyone. Welcome into today's webinar, Building Workplace Trust Through Difficult Conversations, presented by Director of Leadership Training here at Educate 360, Andrea Brockmeier. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'll be assisting and moderating today's session. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with you via email after the session. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or our Q&A option for our short dedicated Q&A after the presentation. We are so excited to present today's webinar. So without further ado, I will hand it right over to you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Mariela, and welcome everybody. I'm really excited to talk about this today. Just got some fresh things to share with you. So let's get to it. We'll see how long it takes. We've got an hour scheduled. That should be fine. Let's just kind of go with the flow here, and let's meet me halfway, and let's make this thing fun. So here is what I want to talk about today as it relates to building trust through difficult conversations. I want to talk about this, just some things to keep in mind. Talk about why this is an essential leadership skill. This is part of our leadership curriculum. Why does navigating difficult conversations, why is that on that list? I want to talk about some language that we can use to diffuse the tension in difficult conversations. Words matter. Let's take a look at that. I've got a framework for you to think about for navigating a difficult conversation that can be really helpful. I've used it many times, and I have found it to be enormously helpful. So a little something for you to think about. And I really want you to come away with some confidence to have those, those conversations you'd rather not have. And I think that that can really make a lot of difference if you're not approaching these with trepidation, but really with some confidence. So as Mariela said, let's engage, chat, annotate. When you're on Zoom, if you got at the bottom left corner, there's a little pen, and if you click on that, you get a toolbar, and it defaults to the pen, which is maybe not so helpful, but if you click on the T above that, you'll get a T for text, and you can type words right on the screen. It is so fun. I love using it. So I would encourage you to do that. And maybe we create something that is brilliant, in which case I can save it, or I can just say, oh, we're going to move on. So check that out. Click on the little pen, see the toolbar, click on the T for text, or you can click on the little check mark too, if there's ideas you like. All right, but let's get going here. And I am going to start with a poll here. How much do you have to deal with this? And let's see. There we go. When was your last difficult conversation? Oh, great participation here. Awesome. They're anonymous too. Not going to call you out on these for sure. All right, another 10 seconds. Folks to weigh in should see the poll on your screen. All right. Okay, well, a couple of folks are just digesting their last difficult conversation just before the webinar. But lots of folks yesterday, last week, few last month, couple don't remember. Yeah. We have these come up a lot. And of course, what makes these difficult, or the nature of our difficult conversations, of course, is going to be wildly different from situation to situation. But there's enough in common that we can come up with some ideas about what we can use to approach them, regardless of that. So what is it? Let's just talk about this. What is it that makes these conversations difficult? And it might be a word, it might be an expression. What are your thoughts about that? Just go ahead and again, annotate it on the screen, pop it into chat. When you think of your difficult conversation, what is it? Why is it difficult? Conflict. Yeah, a lot of there's conflict at the root of a lot of these. Exactly. Disagreement, right? So, and a conflict is just that difference of opinion. Yeah. Emotion, definitely. Robert, love that. Susan. There's a lot of emotions that get stirred up with these. And that can be, sometimes emotions can be good. A lot of times they can be very unnerving, make us very unsettled, and they often don't do a whole lot for confidence, right? Negative reactions, right? We're anticipating negative reactions or value or behavior. Cost and value, interesting. I don't know, Raymond, if you want to say anything else about that, or maybe it's an unpopular topic. Yeah, maybe maybe you're thinking, is the squeeze worth the juice kind of thing? You have to get yourself ready to do this. You know, what's the investment worth, or you know, what are you going to get out of it? Yeah, sometimes they are very high stake. Lack of trust, Jennifer, we're going to talk about that. Yeah, discomfort, it's just not everybody's comfort zone. Exactly. Explaining something to someone, it's not just our emotions to think about, it's other people's too. Other people's expressions when talking with them. And that could be maybe facial expressions, verbal expressions. That can be really off-putting. Different perspectives, misunderstanding. Yeah, Don, we're going to talk a lot about that. Exactly. Personality differences. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unknown change you aren't comfortable with, right? Maybe I have to be a messenger with something that I'm not excited about. That puts you in a tough spot, right? In fact, we get put in tough spots a lot. Sometimes it's not really, maybe we're the messenger kind of thing. Yeah. Um, Verbal emotions, remote teams meetings. Yeah, you know, that's interesting too. I don't have anything specifically today about doing this remotely as opposed to face, but you know, feel free to weigh in on that. Yeah, love it. Yeah, what are we expecting out of that? So Jennifer mentioned trust, and that is a theme I want us to think about. Trust is absolutely the underpinning of team collaboration. We need to be able to work effectively with people, and without trust, that isn't going to happen. I don't know if maybe you've heard or read the book. Patrick Lencioni is a great, writes about a lot of things, and he talks about effective teams. And at the root of that is trust, of course. And so trust really is, if you think about it, it's the currency of collaboration, that you aren't going to truly collaborate. You can coordinate, you can maybe work together, but where you're collaborating as in co-creating and really everybody contributing, trust is at the root of that. And we can think about what Covey called trust accounts, that we build trust accounts with people, right? That you make a deposit, you do things that engender trust, that build trust. Sometimes we have to make a withdrawal because maybe we mess up and we do things that undermine trust. But really, we want to be building trust in order to facilitate team collaboration. And when does trust matter the most? When things are going hunky-dory, when things are going great, or when they're not going so well? Usually when things get uncomfortable, right? So in terms of what we mean by trust, there are a lot of different definitions. One that I have always been particularly fond of is a definition by Hurley. He said that trust is the confident reliance on someone when you are in a position of vulnerability. And that idea of vulnerability is going to come through as we're talking about things today. I want you to think about that that to me has always been a distinguishing factor. When you trust somebody, when you can be down and you trust them not to, not to take advantage of that. And the vulnerability of just sort of being palms up sometimes, I don't maybe know, or I'm not sure what to do. And so I want us to kind of circle back around to that as we're talking about difficult conversations today. Yeah, and acceptance of my members after the conversation. Yeah, definitely. All right, so I have a colleague who's on a team, and he's got one or two team members, I think, who underperform. They don't follow through. They are consistently a source of frustration on the team, and no one is having this conversation with them about this. Does anybody ever experience that? Anybody ever been around in a situation where there are difficult conversations that need to happen and nobody is stepping up? Yeah, yeah. What's the consequence of that? What happens when there are difficult conversations that need to be had and nobody's stepping up to do it? Low morale. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Other people have to do the work because nobody will tell them that they need to do it. Right. And so that people are generally not too happy about that. These things go on unresolved. It's like a cancer. Ignoring it makes it grow. Exactly. Because not only are you having to work, but the whole time you're doing that, you're thinking, I shouldn't be having to do this, right? And nothing's happening. Anxiety. Yeah. Lack of engagement. Ultimately, people will pull back. It's that idea of one bad apple, and if the bad apple isn't being addressed, nobody's going in to pull it out or get it to clean itself up. Yeah, people will just disengage, and the same behavior continues. Arrogance builds. Indifference. Right. Right. Yeah. What's the message to the people who need to be engaged in the difficult conversation? Right? What, that it's okay, that what they're doing is not a problem. I mean, there's just all sorts of things. Yeah, and it tends to grow. So this undermines trust with others. The why never gets addressed. You think about, why is nobody having the conversation with them? Am I the only one, or the people around me that I complain with? Are we the only ones that are seeing this? Is it that people don't, the person that's supposed to do it doesn't know how, or have the courage, or is it that nobody knows who it's for? That's an additional frustration too. So what's this dysfunction here? The issues fester, as you said. A lot of times too, it's been my experience that because we never really figure out what the heck's going on, it can kind of create a toxic environment, a little bit of walking on eggs. Like, okay, is this a problem that's ever going to be addressed? What do we do about it? Nobody seems to know. It can really be almost a visceral response to these things that people just get more and more frustrated about. Yeah, that what they're doing is okay. Exactly. They're invincible, untouchable. And so that puts everybody else on sort of oh, I'm not feeling like that's the case with me, right? And so what are the criteria people are using to have these conversations? How are people being? Yeah, they're held to a different standard. Not okay. That is generally pretty unhealthy. But the other thing is, I want you to think about this. It really undermines the self-trust of the person who is supposed to have that conversation. Is it ever us? Right? Is it us that needs to have difficult conversations sometimes? If there isn't clarity around who needs to have it, maybe could we do it? But it's hard. That maybe we don't have the self-confidence to have these conversations. It feeds our vulnerability, right? I feel vulnerable because I'm not confident. I don't know what to do. And don't kid yourself. There can definitely be arrogance or sort of Teflon coating around these people, but there may be some things that they are aware of too, and maybe their self-trust. They know that there's a conversation that needs to be had, and their self-confidence can be compromised as well. Yeah, self-defeating behaviors on both sides. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And what's worse, when you go all the way to the top and still nothing changes. Why is that? Somewhere I think there's that idea of trust in myself to have this conversation. And that's what I want to go through today as a framework to put you in a position to approach these things. And like I say, I have used this many times and found it to be just really a stress reliever and a confidence builder. And the framework is see it, say it, seek it, and sink it. Okay, so we're going to go through each one of these steps. And what's really important is that the goal of this framework is a shared understanding. That's all, that's what we're looking for here, is a shared understanding. Not that people are going to do what I want them to do or say what I want them to say. Not that we're going to get them to agree with us. We're looking purely for a shared understanding. So that's the first weight off your shoulder. You go in looking for that. Okay. So let's talk about each one of these. See it. So the first thing I want you to do, I want you to take a few seconds. I want you to think about a difficult conversation that you are avoiding. Just jot down. I'm going to give you about a half a minute here. Just jot down one sentence about a difficult conversation that you're avoiding. Maybe it's the one you were thinking of earlier. A lot of times you can think of work stuff. A lot of times you can think of personal stuff too. That's okay. All right. Anybody coming up with a blank? Anybody not think of a difficult conversation that they need to have? If you are one of those fortunate ones, maybe reflect on one from the past. All right, so I want you to think about your sentence, your expression. You don't have to deal with that person anymore. Dawn's got some she can share. I want you to think about what you wrote down or what's in your head. Is it about you or is it about the other person? Was your sentence about you or was it about the other person? The other person. A lot of times it's about the other person. When we think of a difficult conversation that we need to have with someone, we're looking at someone, we're thinking about someone. So here's the thing, we cannot control the other person. This should be liberating for you. I cannot control what their perceptions are, what they see, what they do. We really have to be the driver ourselves. And that puts us in a good position to know how to get this started. Because what we're going to do is take a time to be self-aware, to think about what's going on from my perspective. That's the only thing I'm certain about is what I am experiencing, right? Here's the first point of vulnerability. I have to be a little vulnerable. I have to be able to be honest with myself. And I need to slow down. A lot of times, a couple of folks mentioned emotions earlier. These things can get us right on the edge very quickly, a lot of times. And to be sure, we don't always have time to plan to have a difficult conversation. Sometimes we might be in the moment and we only are going to have that one opportunity. But when we do have opportunity, we need to slow down, let those emotions dissipate, and just be self-aware and just totally honest with ourselves. And so what questions are we going to ask to really see what's going on before reacting? What are we going to do to wrap our heads around our perspective, our sense of this, our sense making of this? And the keys are to focus on facts, feelings, and filters. What are the things that we know? Not conjecture, what we guess might be happening. What are the things that we know have happened? What are the feelings? What are we experiencing? And what are the filters that we might be running this through, right? So think about your conversation that you noted. What's the real issue beneath it? What actually happened or is going to happen? Okay? What are you experiencing? Okay? Because we don't really know what the other person is experiencing. What emotions are you feeling? What assumptions might you be working with as to why something happened? Right? How are you filling in the gaps? And again, we're just going to put the other person out of our mind, and this is all about us. Yes, and how that person's behavior affects me and others. Exactly. Yeah. And we, yeah, what they might do or say. And we can put that on hold. And that's because that's where we can get really, we kind of run off down that path and we try to play the whole thing out. And instead, and nobody can say this is wrong. That's the thing. Nobody can say that what happened from our perspective, what we saw, what we're experiencing, nobody can say that's wrong. There is nothing to disagree with there. So that's the see it part. But the thing is, we can't fix what we won't talk about, right? So we need to be able to say it. We need to be able to talk about it. Hierarchy of needs. Yeah, so basic. Yeah. So another poll here. Marielle, I'm going to go have you fire that up because I see a whole bunch of polls. Thank you. So when you think about a conversation, a difficult conversation, which is harder, starting the conversation or staying calm once it begins? I only gave it two choices there. I suppose it could start out calm and then veer suddenly. Both are very hard. I don't like starting because I may not remain calm. I know I should have given you both. Well, pick. What, another 10 seconds? Okay. Call, you've got some company there, depending on the person. Yeah. All right. Well, and I think that's fair. Yeah, they can both be hard, depends on who it is. But a lot of times it's getting it started, right? And that's, I think, what really a lot of times feeds the avoidance is I just don't know where to start. What am I going to do? And then we kind of, again, run off down that path. So if we had to choose, most of us would say, it looks like starting the conversation. And of course, no right answer on that. Well, something to think about here. Who is familiar with this expression? Seek first to understand, and then to be understood, right? Anybody familiar with that? 7 Habits, Stephen Covey, exactly. It was habit number 5. Yeah. Great advice. Never going to argue with something that Covey says, but I am going to say on this one, not always. Any thoughts around why we might turn this around and say that first we want to be understood and then to understand when it comes to difficult conversations? Any thoughts? In crisis? Okay. If somebody's in crisis, or maybe we're in crisis? Yeah, my opinion and feelings and point of view is valid. It doesn't have to change just because of someone else's understanding. Absolutely. Policy first, follow the rules. Could be. When you need to get a point across, I may need to bring order. Some people might stand up and pay attention to the effects of their behavior and then listen to their own. Okay. Yeah. You need to provide context. Yeah, yeah. All right, another poll for you here. You get a text or a phone call from somebody. Which of these questions would you prefer to answer? Ring. Hey, what are you doing Friday night? Or ring. Would you like to see that new movie Friday night? All right. Yeah. What's preferable to the second question? Why would you prefer somebody to ask you if you'd like to see the new movie Friday night rather than what are you doing Friday night? And of course it is, but yeah, right there. Open-ended questions. Yeah, I like the specificity. Like, exactly. What are you doing makes me think they want something from me other than just hanging out. I want to have the option to change my mind to pick the more fun option. Think less. Yeah, I don't like the open-ended. Like, what are you asking me to do? Go for dinner or help you move, right? It's the same thing with difficult conversations. Have you ever had somebody come up to you and say, "Hey, so what did you think of that candidate?" Or "What did you think of that presentation?" Or "How did you think that movie went?" Yeah, baiting, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and when they do that, a lot of times it's like, I think it went okay, or I wasn't too crazy about it. And so somebody mentioned context earlier, and we want to give people context. Um, this is where we're going to take the opportunity to be understood before we try to understand. Providing information to others makes it safer for them to answer questions. If you don't do that, if you go in asking questions and trying to kind of poke them a little bit, that can really make people feel defensive or to be evasive. They don't know why you're asking, perhaps. And this way of advocating for ourselves, setting that context, helps them understand why you're bringing it up. Yeah, exactly. They're going to protect themselves if they don't know, especially if maybe go back to our situation where somebody's not performing. How do you think you're doing? Well, I think I'm doing great. They're gonna kind of puff themselves up, make it additionally difficult for you to have that conversation rather than giving some context based on what you know, how you're feeling, things that they can't disagree with. They can't say you're wrong. That's how we're going in, right? Yeah. Now, the other thing that is really clutch with this approach, and this is, I have seen visible responses when you do this. And the example that I'm thinking of was actually a personal example. But you want to set expectation. You want to, before you explain your perspective, before you offer your perspective, and we can think of it as a gift, is to set the expectation that I'm going to share with you how things look from my perspective, and then I'm going to get your take on on what your perspective is. Okay. So if you just start saying, well, here's how I think, and you don't say that, they might feel like they're going to interrupt. Yeah, but I didn't. Yeah, but that isn't how it went. Yeah, that's not what I saw. Yeah. I'm going to share, I'd like to share with you, hey, Joanne, I've got some concerns about how our joint sessions are going. I'd like to let you know how I see things, and then I'd like to get your take on how it's going. Get them in a listening mode. I've seen people's shoulders drop when they hear that because they knew something was coming and they're kind of bristling. But I'd like to share with you, and then I'd like to get your take on it. Let them know. Actually say that. Practice that as a way of teeing up the conversation. Get them to relax. They're going to get the advantage of getting context and knowing where you're coming from. And then they know that they're going to be able to share with you. It sounds so simple, but I'm telling you, it's really powerful. And then we're going to say it with clarity and confidence. Clarity, because we've taken a step back. We're talking about what we have seen, facts, what we know, data that we have, how we're feeling, impact to us. Clear, confident, because this is not something they can disagree with. This is again our gift here. This is where I'm coming from. So we don't have to tiptoe. Sometimes we feel like we have to tiptoe around some of these conversations, or, I'm going to have a difficult conversation. I've got to be tough. This is bananas. This is nonsense. That is not constructive. We're confident. We're clear. There's an easier path through this. Yeah. Get everyone to relax. Exactly, because these can be a lot of times really super hyper emotion laden. So anything we can do, and giving people information is power. Information, knowledge, it gives people an advantage rather than, hey, what are you doing Friday night? Oh, nothing. Great, I've got 3 sleeper sofas I was gonna ask you to help me move. Right? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right, so what are some words? Let's talk about some words we can use when we're saying it. What are some words that derail a difficult conversation? Can you think of anything, any words that you've heard, or maybe short expressions? And again, feel free to annotate on the screen or put it in chat. Chat's working pretty well here. Let's see that. You. But by derail, I mean it turns it negative, that kind of bristles, that thank you for the question, that it just takes it in a different direction. You're not listening. Yeah. Diffuse. Yeah, maybe diffuses it, or just makes it difficult for you to get through it. That makes people not respond positively. You need to do something. Yeah. You don't understand. You don't understand. Oh, you don't understand. I told you. I told you, fill in the blank. You didn't follow my instructions. I'm hearing that you're not performing. Oh, Ishta, Donald, seriously. You need to calm down. Oh my gosh. I still remember somebody telling me, you need to calm down. Don't you tell me. You should know this. Oh my gosh. What's the problem? It's been brought to my attention from a lot of other employees. Oh, folks, I am so sorry you've heard all these things. These are bad. Don't be so emotional. Oh my gosh. Calm down. Don't be so emotional. We've discussed this already. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And on it goes. Yeah. We have always had issues with what is so difficult in doing this. Wow. Yeah, maybe we'll turn this into a little list. We could mark it, or what not to say when you're having a difficult conversation. Here we go again. Oh man, that is something. All right, so some phrases we're going to use for the first part of our conversation to say it. Here is what I see. Okay, this is what I think. I feel, or I felt. I was surprised that. What this means to me is. Here is how this impacts me. It's all about me. So again, this is what makes it easy. We lead with this really easy part, which is what we experience, what we see, what we feel. Okay? We want to stay away from language like always, never, everyone, no one, all, none, absolute, very seldom accurate, do not help, just really ramp up the defensiveness. Instead, think about sometimes, often, on occasion, as accurate as you can be and as factual as possible. If you've got numbers, use them, right? As much as we can. And speaking on behalf of someone, and I think Donald had, a couple of you maybe had a comment there. I know Donald, so-and-so says, or I've heard that, this is not about conjecture. This is not about what we heard in the rumor mill. Speak for yourself. That's the only way to have a constructive, difficult conversation. And if you have to take a little more time to figure that out, how you're going to do that, do so. If you're speaking as a leader on behalf of a team, you've got to still focus on what the conflict means to you. Nothing will make people more defensive than saying everyone thinks. Everybody, I heard everyone thinks, or everybody says, or nobody, or whatever it is. You shouldn't get anywhere with that. That's not helpful. And it's not true. Like those kinds of things. It's got to be about us. So we want to be super clear. So rather than saying something like your actions in team member meetings have been unconstructive. Okay, if I said that to you, what's going to be your first question? How are you going to respond? Your actions in team member meetings have been unconstructive. What are you going to say? Name one. Totally. What do you mean? What do you mean unconstructive? Instead, think about, such as, in the last few weeks, I am hearing your comments in team meetings as dismissive of ideas offered by other team members. Okay? Focus on facts. And these aren't either or comments. Let's get be part of the conversation. Everything you say is critical of what anyone says when we're problem solving. Seriously? In our last meeting, 3 times I heard you respond to a new idea by starting with that won't work because. Oh my gosh. Well, at least it was HR. Right? And then answer the so what. So what? So what that this is happening? So what that these things are what you're experiencing? And don't guess at their intent. We are not going to be guessing at why they're doing this. It's just not time well spent. Maybe you're trying to demonstrate your expertise, but all you're doing is damaging team morale. Well, first of all, you don't know why they're doing it. And that's not all they're doing. And that's just all that language is just really going to disengage people. Instead, again, I sense the team energy draining in those meetings. And since last month, I have noticed follow-up meetings to further develop ideas brought up in our meeting are no longer getting scheduled. I have seen that. You can't tell me that's not the case. That's simply what I have seen. Dispassionate, unemotional, just putting my cards on the table. All right. So that's all about us. We've said it. And now we're going to seek it. Now we are going to understand their view. This is where we say, okay, now I'd like to hear it. That's what I've got. What are your perspectives? Okay. So this is where we're going to listen more than hearing. Hearing is the physiological happening of your sound going into your ears and it registering in your brain. Listening is making sense of that, right? Also, listening is not agreeing. Just because somebody's listening doesn't mean they agree. And so sometimes, you think about the body language and you want to make sure that we're conveying that we understand. That's really what listening is. It should not be understood as agreeing. Okay. So, and the difficult conversation secret weapon is curiosity. So we really want to be, again, just really liberate yourself from having to understand anything. I don't have to put any energy into understanding where they're coming from. I'm just going to listen, because the truth of the matter is, until we hear it from them, we do not know, and we're guessing. Oh, they think they're better than everybody else. Oh, they're just lazy. Oh, they're just fill in the blank. We don't know that, right? So another poll here. How good are your listening skills? All right, Anna, you got this one? There we go. Listening is one thing, taking notes, well, it's hard to listen and take notes at the same time. Yeah, it's two different two different brain activities. All right, another 10 seconds here. Can't be done. What do we say? Get a scribe. Yay, AI for that. All right. Great engagement on these polls, folks. Thank you so much. You guys are stars. Everybody's, most people a good, very good listener, an okay listener. One person needs to work on their listening skills. I need to work. It's hard to listen well. It's hard to really, if you think really what good listening is, I find it very difficult, especially for any extended period of time. A lot of times I'll say, okay, for the next 20 minutes, I'm just going to listen really well. And I disappoint myself every time. But you folks look like you're doing great. At least everybody heard the question. So that's good. Right. Well, that's an interesting observation. And I was thinking of answering a question along those lines. Do you listen as well as others think you do, or do you listen better than others think you do? Yeah. Active listening and retaining information. Oh my gosh, so much we could talk about. One of the things though is that it is a key leadership skill. If you think about, and it's an absolute, as a leader, it's, think less about having the answers and more about listening. So what makes this so hard? I mean, do any of these speak to your challenges, barriers, planning your reply? Right? When you're listening, I'm thinking, this is a challenge that I'm thinking about, what am I going to say in response? And so then you're not really taking in, you're evaluating and calculating what you're going to say, or defending your position too early. Right? And that's, again, we want them to listen so that when you tell them, I'm going to ask for your opinion and I'm just going to share with you, trying to diffuse some of that, or ignoring nonverbals, or if you're virtual and you don't have the nonverbals because people don't use their cameras, so hard. How many of you use cameras at work? Everybody uses cameras. Raise your hand. Optional? There's hardly any hands. Right. Totally. Exactly. Susan, exactly. Yeah. Cameras are, I gotta say, it's an aside, but there's a lot of organizations that just aren't, people just don't use their cameras, and we miss a lot. But listening is a micro trust builder. And micro trust, have you heard of micro trust? Where little things that we do day to day that build trust. Trust isn't built, it's built in part by grand things about being there for huge events, but little things that we do that build trust over time. And listening, think about that. Listening is a micro trust builder. And when people feel that they are being heard, that helps them relax, right? We get our shoulders up on, into our ears when we feel like we're having to get through something. But when you really feel like you're being heard, that's where you see the shoulders drop. And we want to listen, with empathy. Be curious. Drop the urge to fix or respond. This, again, we're going to say it, and then we're going to seek it. And we're not looking to fix or respond. All we're looking for, remember, is that shared understanding. Can you tell me more? What's that like for you? Ask. This is powerful stuff. Ask yourself, what might this feel like for them? Given their experience, not mine. Right? Check for projection. Am I assuming how they feel? Am I truly hearing them? Really challenge yourself. And then tolerate that discomfort. Sometimes staying present with hard feelings is the most powerful thing you can offer. Think about the best listener you know, the person that you go to when things are really, really difficult, professionally or personally. Those are the people that will sit there with you when you've got those awful feelings, and how powerful that is, how safe you feel. That's an amazing thing. So yeah. Bandwidth that and thinking about stuff. Oh, are you talking about cameras here? The bandwidth issue, I suppose. Yeah, I'm sure it's required in some meetings. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose it can be true. It depends on the purpose, right? And so that might be another thing that think about that as part of that table setting. I'm gonna share my perception with you and then ask for yours. Could we have our cameras on? I don't know. You have to. Each situation might be different, but all right. So consider this. Kind of putting some of this stuff together. Let's say we've got a colleague in another department that's been late meeting deadlines over the past several months. So we're going to tee this up. Hey, Dan, I have a concern I'd like to talk to you about and then get your perspective. Is this an okay time? Sure. All right, thanks. Well, since the beginning of the quarter, I've received deliverables from you 8 to 10 workdays later than scheduled. It happened with this report, the sales analysis data in July, and the 2025 report I needed last week for the business case I'm working on. Okay, receiving these has resulted in me being late with deliverables my manager was expecting from me, and she commented on it in my one-on-one with her yesterday. It's frustrating not to feel confident about being able to deliver what my manager needs on time, and I'm concerned about not being able to set reasonable expectations with her or my boss or my team. Okay. So we see it, we say it. There's nothing that should be so easy to do. There's nothing Tim can disagree with. That's just it. Just very objectively. I don't have to be spun up about it. Okay. So there is my gift to you. So what questions then would we ask and respond? Yeah. Are you having a challenge getting that data to me that I can help with? What roadblocks are you facing? Love it. What else might you ask? How can I help you? Can you help me create a more realistic time frame so we are aligned? Maybe even, were you aware that you've been late? Were you aware that do you have insight into when those are scheduled to be delivered? A lot of times these things are a total mismatch of understanding or maybe information sharing. What is your perception about how the deliverables on this initiative are getting done? Yeah, exactly. So seek it phrases. What did you see? And not specifically about this scenario, but just in general. What did you see? How did or do you feel? How are you impacted by this? Yeah, exactly. Totally, Donald. As I always say, there are a lot of people, folks, that they have already had a long day by the time they sign in or walk through the door in the morning. You just don't know exactly. And not everybody shares publicly with that kind of stuff. Exactly. Were you surprised by that? What's most important to you? What would make this easier? What do you need from me? Exactly. Yeah. So that empathy can go a long ways. And empathy is another, that just when you filter your conversations and you're seeking to understand others through empathy, that helps people relax, feel safe, and generally makes people want to partner with. Yeah. All right. Then we've said it. Well, we've seen it. We've got our facts. We say it. We seek it, and now we're going to think it. We're going to align things. And we've got that my perspective, the other person's perspective out there, and so there's transparency here. This reduces the assumption and reduces the number of gaps that we're having to fill. Okay, we confirm that mutual understanding, and now we're set up to bridge the differences and lean into similarities. And so we're going to together then figure out to move forward. And again, we're not looking for them to agree with us or us to agree with them. The goal is that shared understanding, surfacing those mental models, those paradigms that we're working with, so that we can see through the other person's lens a little bit. That's what puts us in a position to figure out how do we get through this together. Okay. So it is a leadership thing, leading through difficult conversations. And that trust, again, is at their root. You are not going to have real collaboration. You might have people in meetings together, but you are not going to have real collaboration if there isn't trust. And I would say that a big piece of that is that self-trust. And when you are confident about your ability to have those difficult conversations, you have trust and you start to build trust in yourself and those around you. You will build those fill those trust accounts. People will have confidence and trust in you because they know that if there's something wrong, you can take it on, you can talk about it. You model this for others. Hey, we can have conversations that are not so easy, but it's not about guessing what other people want or trying to beat somebody to a position. Okay, we've got a way that we can do that. Model those listening skills, model transparency, model those things that make people feel like they are in really solid ground with leadership that is willing to listen and understand and it's going to be honest and transparent when things aren't going as they need to. So see it, that awareness, take a step back, be a little vulnerable, shed any biases, express yourself, speak with courage and clarity, give the gift of context and your perspective so that people that you're communicating with know what it is that you're talking about and what you're looking for. Listen deeply with curiosity and align. Come up with the next steps together now that you both understand. And that's where you see that trust build. All right, that's what I've got. We'd love to see you on your partner with you on your development journey, whatever it is you're looking for, leadership stuff, technical, Six Sigma, project management, business analysis. We've got lots of stuff that we can help you in your professional development. We've got some upcoming classes. I can't believe we're already talking about December. November is, boy, what, the end of this week? When we got the holidays. So yeah, thank you, folks. Any questions? We've got a couple of minutes left. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your engagement. Makes it so much more fun and constructive. Just great energy here. Good. Oh, that's great. Awesome. Yeah, it was a great discussion. Thank you, everybody. This was fantastic.
So many great thank yous, so many great pieces of feedback. Thank you
Yeah.
so
Oh,
much,
good.
Andrea. This was so much great info. I did want to just remind our audience that if they missed out on any part of this session, they will absolutely be able to get access to the recording in an email after the webinar. So be on the lookout for that. I believe we just got a lot of amazing thank yous and great discussions. So
Yeah, it was awesome.
it was so fun. Thank you all so much for your insight. And we are so sorry for all of those things that you had to hear in your meetings that you were not expecting. So,
Right.
hopefully you got some great takeaways, and we will be following up with that recording in an email. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks, everyone. And again,
Thank you,
thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thanks so
Alrighty.
much.
We'll
Have a great
have
rest of your week.
we'll have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll see you all very soon. Bye for now.